Brene Brown, a name that has become synonymous with vulnerability and courage, a speaker whose words have resonated with millions of people around the world. Her TED Talk on vulnerability has been viewed over 15 million times, and she has authored several best-selling books on the topic. But who is Brene Brown? What has made her so popular? And what can we learn from her? Well, for starters, Brene Brown is a shame and vulnerability researcher. Yes, you read that right. She studies shame and vulnerability for a living. And before you start thinking, wow, that sounds like a depressing job, well, let me tell you, it's not all doom and gloom. In fact, Brene's work is all about finding the courage to be vulnerable and the power of shame resilience. Brene's work has also shed light on the power of shame resilience. She defines shame resilience as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Shame is something we all experience at some point in our lives, but Brene teaches us that it's not the end of the road. By building shame resilience, we can learn to recognize shame triggers, reach out to others for support, and practice self-compassion. Vulnerability is not weakness. Imagine you're at a party and you're feeling awkward and out of place. You could keep your guard up, pretending to be someone you're not, and hope that no one notices your discomfort. Or you could take a deep breath, embrace your vulnerability, and start a conversation with someone new. Sure, there's a chance that they might not be interested or the conversation might fall flat, but there's also a chance that you'll make a new friend, learn something new, or even discover a shared passion. One of Brene's most famous quotes is, "Vulnerability is not weakness, it's our greatest measure of courage." And that's really the crux of her work. She believes that by embracing our vulnerability, we can unlock a whole new level of connection and joy in our lives. And if you are thinking, yeah, that sounds great in theory, but how do I actually do it? Well, that's where Brene's research comes in. Vulnerability isn't just about taking risks in our personal lives. It's also essential for professional success. In today's fast-paced and competitive world, it's easy to feel like we need to have all the answers and never make mistakes. But as Brene says, perfectionism is not the same as striving for excellence. By embracing vulnerability in our workplace, we can foster creativity, innovation, and collaboration. Feeling scared or uncertain? Remember, vulnerability is not weakness. It is our greatest measure of courage. Shame cannot survive being spoken. It cannot survive empathy. I mean, have you ever tried to hide a shameful secret? It's like trying to hide a giant elephant in a tiny room. It just doesn't work. Eventually, that elephant is going to stink up the whole place and everyone will know it's there. But seriously, Brene is right. When we keep our shame hidden, it only grows and festers. It becomes this big, scary monster that we're afraid to face. But when we speak it out loud, when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and share our struggles with others, we take away its power. We break the spell of shame and start to heal. And let's be real, vulnerability is not easy. It's like going to the gym. It's uncomfortable, it's hard work, and sometimes it just plain sucks. But just like going to the gym, the benefits of vulnerability are huge. We become stronger, more resilient, and more connected to those around us. So next time you're feeling ashamed or vulnerable, try speaking it out loud. It might feel scary at first, but trust me, it's worth it. And who knows, you might just inspire someone else to do the same. Perfectionism is a trap. Perfectionism is a trap that many of us fall into. We believe that if we can just do everything right, look perfect, and never make a mistake, then we'll finally be happy and successful. But the truth is, trying to be perfect all the time is exhausting and ultimately unattainable. We're only human after all. Brene Brown has spoken extensively about the dangers of perfectionism and the importance of embracing our imperfections. As she says, perfectionism is not the same thing as striving to be our best. Perfectionism is the belief that if we live perfect, look perfect, and act perfect, we can minimize or avoid the pain of blame, judgment, and shame. When we strive for perfection, we set ourselves up for failure. No matter how hard we try, we will always fall short of our impossibly high standards. And when we inevitably make mistakes, we beat ourselves up and feel like we've let ourselves and others down. When we embrace our imperfections and recognize that we are all works in progress, we can find more freedom and joy in our work, and ourselves, and our lives. We can let go of the constant pressure to be perfect and start to enjoy the journey of growth and self-discovery. Of course, this is easier said than done. It can be hard to let go of our perfectionist tendencies and embrace our flaws. Imperfections are not inadequacies. They are reminders that we are all in this together. So take a step back and remind yourself that it's okay to be imperfect. As Brene says, authenticity is a collection of choices that we have to make every single day. It's about the choice to show up and be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. And let us be real, being our true imperfect selves is a lot more fun than trying to be perfect all the time. Vulnerability requires boundaries. Have you ever been in a situation where you shared something deeply personal with someone, only to have it thrown back in your face later on? It's not a great feeling, and it can make us want to clam up and keep our guard up in the future. One of the key lessons we can learn from Brene is that vulnerability requires boundaries. We can't just go around sharing our deepest fears and insecurities with anyone and everyone. We need to be intentional about who we share with and why. As Brene says, boundaries are the key to vulnerability. Without them, you're just oversharing. The point is, we all make mistakes when it comes to vulnerabilities and boundaries. It's not always easy to navigate these waters, but it's worth the try. By setting boundaries and being intentional about our vulnerability, we can cultivate deeper connections with others and live more wholeheartedly. Power of empathy. Another important lesson we can learn from Brene is the power of empathy. Empathy is the ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and truly understand their perspective. And according to Brene, it's one of the most important skills we can develop. As she says, empathy is a choice and it's a vulnerable choice. Because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Empathy is an incredibly powerful tool. It allows us to connect with others on a deeper level, to understand their struggles and support them in a meaningful way. And let's face it, in today's world, we could all use a little more empathy. One of the ways Brene encourages us to cultivate empathy is through active listening. This means truly focusing on the other person without judgment or distraction and trying to understand their perspective. And as she points out, this is not always easy. Our natural tendency is to want to fix things or offer advice, but sometimes what people really need is to just be heard. Brene shares a great example of this in one of her books. She talks about a time when she was going through a tough breakup and her friend called to check in on her. Brene launched into a long rant about everything they had gone wrong in the relationship and how she was feeling. When she finished, her friend simply said, "Wow, that sounds really hard. I'm here for you." Brene was struck by the power of those words, not because they solved her problems, but because they made her feel seen and heard. But let's be real. Vulnerability and empathy can be scary. It can be hard to let down our guard and show our true selves to others. And sometimes, it's just easier to put up walls and keep our emotions hidden. So, what can we learn from Brene Brown? We can learn that vulnerability is not weakness, but rather a measure of courage. We can learn that empathy and connection are essential for true happiness and belonging. And if all else fails, just remember, if you're not in the arena also getting your ass kicked, I'm not interested in your feedback. This is one of Brene's favorites from Roosevelt's famous quotes. So don't worry about the haters and naysayers. Just keep showing up and being your true vulnerable self. If you are new here, hello and welcome to Motivation Matters Most. Here in this channel, we talk about self-improvement and motivation with different stories to go along with it in order for you to find success in life. If this is something you're into, consider hitting the subscribe button and ring the bell icon so you can be updated on our next upload. With all that said, work hard in silence and let your silence be your noise. See you!